recording, and then I will pass it on to Liz to introduce. Yes.
Okay, guys, thank you for joining our first professional speaker session of the 2022 to 2023 academic school year here at SCAD AIAS. I would like to first kick it off and introduce Miss Penny Francis. She is located in New Orleans and has her own design firm called Eclectic Home. And now I would like to hand the mic off to her to get a little quick background about herself before we dive into a few stories and experiences. And right now it's a more smaller group, so it's a lot more intimate for asking questions and going around maybe in a circle possibly. But besides that, we'll let her take the stage. And now you can go ahead and introduce.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, thank you guys so much. I'm really honored to speak with you. I've always been a proponent of mentoring and talking to young people, whether in any of the building arts. So whether your track is interior design or it's architecture, we all intersect at some point, right, during our careers. So it's invaluable. And so I think what you guys are doing is great. So I'm happy to be here, and it's small and intimate and it's great. And no question is off the table. So feel free to be honest, and I'm gonna be brutally honest with you. I'm gonna tell you what you don't learn in school that you probably need to know on your journey as a professional in this career. My name is Penny Francis. I'm an interior designer. My business is Eclectic Home. It is 22 years old. My firm is 22 years old. We're a full service interior design firm. We do both residential and commercial design, but primarily the majority of it is residential design. I have a 7,000 square foot showroom in New Orleans. So that showroom has furniture from antiques to vintage to new, custom, bespoke. It is truly eclectic, and eclectic is because it's diverse. So I truly believe that design diversity is important. Having a mix of styles and periods brings about a space that looks highly evolved, very curated, and timeless. So when I was trying to decide what's the name of my firm going to be, I could have put my name, but I didn't really want to put my name. I really wanted people to understand my aesthetic. And my aesthetic has always been drawn to everything. There is not a period or a style that I don't love. There is a right way and a wrong way to be eclectic, right? You don't want to look like a flea market, like it's junk, too much stuff. There's a fine balance that you need to strike between the principles, the scale, proportion, right? So that name was just easy for me. It said what I was. Now, the only thing about the word eclectic is that people look at it real quick and think it's electric. So I have to correct them quite often. But my track in design started off when I was really, really young. I'm one of 6 girls. I have 5 sisters, no brothers. I had a father that was military and also was in construction. I'm at the end of the line. I'm number 5 of 6, and I was a very handy child. So I was like my father's apprentice. My grandfather was a master plasterer. So I was exposed to construction and building arts at a very young age. I was always obsessed with design. I would watch old films and not really pay attention to the storyline, and all I'd looked at was the set. I was obsessed with sets, and I was a crafty child. I was always doing something creative. I was obsessed with furniture. By the time I was 14, I was refinishing furniture. Again, got my hands dirty, really loved the arts. Now, for me, my degree is in education, and I'm in fine arts, and I thought I wanted to be an art teacher. During my college years, I put myself through college, and while I was in college, I had always had a job, and I worked for some developers. And these developers saw early on my ability to understand construction, but also provide ideas and access to resources and ideas that they would have never considered. Now, mind you, you guys, this was in the 80s. There weren't really many accredited schools in Louisiana other than LSU. And in my family, women at that time were either nurses or teachers. And some of your parents may have had some of the same experiences. Like that's what, you know, women were drawn to. My parents thought I was very creative, and what I wanted to do was more of a hobby than a career. But they didn't know what they didn't know. They're from a generation, my mom's 93, you know, my dad passed when he was 75. So they didn't really understand what I wanted to do. So I was fortunate enough in college to have these experiences. And so by the time my senior year came around, I got offered a very good job. And that was to stay with them and continue to project management, all of the renovation construction of condos and multifamily. So that's what I did. And I did it for a long time and had always desired to have my own firm and wished one day I would have a store. And so I've, as a hobby, I would always visit small merchants. New Orleans is a very small market and town like Savannah, right? It's so very similar to Savannah, where it's very rooted in its history. There's lots of antiques. There's lots of small merchants. There's not many big box stores here, which is great. But when you want to design and you have an aesthetic that you want to introduce more modern or contemporary, and there's no resources here. So I knew that when I was ready to launch my firm, I needed to launch it with the store, because the store gave me more buying power, but it is also a way for me to put myself on display and to really show what eclectic meant. And here I am 22 years later. I can go on and on, so just feed me some questions.
So you were exposed to a few family members at a very young age that influenced you into this career path. Besides family members, were there any influential figures that you aspired to be like or were influenced by their design and their work? Or was it primarily you were influenced by your family members that like created this path for you?
No, people like Dorothy Draper, Elise DeWolf, or Elsie DeWolf, the Eames, Ray Eames, Courvoisier, you name it. These very, very powerful designers that I looked up to, that I thought were pushing the envelope, were really, really inspiring to me. Dorothy Draper was a badass. I mean, she really loved color. She created, you know, a look that today still gets replicated, and her work is really timeless. Some of the newer, you know, designers like Kelly Wersler, I look up to her. I think that she's pretty phenomenal. Courtney Bishop, she's sort of a bit more of that Charleston area. She's pretty amazing. So yeah, I continue to follow lots of people and be inspired by their work. When it comes to inspiration, I do want to add this. You all are coming from a different period in time where you're exposed to so much more than we would have had, because we didn't have social media, right? So when you needed to do research, we had to go to libraries, right? Or we had to pick up periodicals and have like a huge assortment of magazines. But what I would love for you to do is use what you see as inspiration, but never imitation. Do not imitate anyone else. Create your own voice, use it as inspiration, but create your own voice.
That's great. I really like that statement. So it's interesting, you first started off more towards art education during your educational career, and now you have transformed into an interior designer. Is there anything that you didn't learn in school that you had to learn nowadays in the field, especially since you started off in a different kind of career focus, but now that you're actually out here and you've had your firm for 22 years, has there been something that you have noticed within other generations that have graduated that possibly have worked for you? Like they did not learn that in school, but this is something that is very important and prevalent in the field.
Yeah, I will say this. There was no CAD, there was no Revit. There was barely Windows, right? I mean, I remember working on DOS and having to do a project with a snowman and a Christmas tree and learning how to do that and putting music to it. Things are so very different on the technology side. So what I had to learn was drafting. I had to learn how to use graph paper. I had to learn how to use tools, a compass, a ruler, a level, scale. None of that I was taught, but as an artist and a person that was creative, again, I was exposed to, and I was working with architects who taught me a ton, right? So I was working with architects that literally had big drafting tables and they were sitting there making blueprints, right? So we had blueprints that we were learning from. So what I learned in the field, you cannot replicate in school. As far as my experience level of what I was able to see, what I was able to design, and what I was able to execute. You all have the advantage of making and creating and using technology to manipulate and develop a lot faster and a lot more efficiently. And it's wonderful. And we use AutoCAD now. We use SketchUp. We use Revit. Architects send us the drawings, and then we take their drawings and then do our elevations and do our interior work from it. But the experiences that I had without the technology makes me understand the technology very well, if you know what I mean. So as a principal here, I have talented people that know how to do all of those things. And my time is not better spent not doing that. They're learning, I'm teaching. I am a teacher. I am constantly teaching. And even with the tool, you can make mistakes. I can look at the drawing and know that when we try to execute that, what problems there are going to be. You don't know that yet because you haven't seen and done enough in the execution side of things to problem solve. An architect is a problem solver. And I don't know if your teachers have told you that, you're problem solvers. And so you can have the very best laid out, beautiful plan, but it really means nothing if you can't get it executed. And you don't know what to look for to teach the trades, to make sure the trades and the contractor can execute what it is that you want. So the more you get engaged and the more you know and experience, the better you'll become over time. Do not put the expectation of yourself to come out of school and know it. You have to do the practice of design. You have to learn the practice of architecture. That's why the principals are there. The principals are there because they have migrated to that position. After many years, they've been able to go through the process of concept, development, execution, and project management. So they go through that process, and you do it enough, then you start to have enough years under your belt to then become and rise from maybe junior to senior to principal. But that is not happening overnight. You've got to put in the work. You've got to see, you've got to ask questions. And even if you're sitting in a cubicle in your first job, and they're only giving you building envelope drawings to do, you need to understand what the big concept is, the context of what that is and how it's going to be integrated with everything else, and ask to see it through. I want to see my work. I want to see how this develops, right? So I may have gone off a little bit there, Liz, but yeah, the experience of what you do in the field and what I was able to do without technology, I think has helped me survive all these years.
That's really great. Does anybody else in the crowd have a question right now in regards to, okay, I see Zena. something that you may have learned in the work field. I know all of us here, we all may be in the same grade or different grade, but we're on our own journey and path. So everybody should have a lot of curiosity right now. So I'll end the mic to Zena.
I just have one simple question. I know in the beginning you said you've had your firm now for 22 years, and being friends with Cameron, I know she's 21. So I wanted to know, how was balancing that personal versus professional life during that time?
Okay, brilliant question. Yeah, I was actually, yeah, Cameron, this is all Cameron knows, this is the part of me that Cameron only knows. I will tell you, there is no reason as a woman or a man or anyone starting a family that you have to sacrifice your passion for your journey, for family. You shouldn't have to. I think I'm a better mother because I stayed on my journey. So it can become overwhelming, yes. And let's get rid of the word balanced. My life is never balanced. Some days I'm doing a really good job at it, and other days I straight up suck at it because there's a lot going on. I have 6 employees, and guess what? Every client is a boss, right? So yes, there's a lot of that, but what I really try to do is be mindful and try. It's hard to be off when you're an entrepreneur. You're always on. It's the hardest work. It is not a 9 to 5. It is, you know, who knows? I don't know if you guys seen those commercials or TikToks or whatever, people talking about, oh yeah, I'm so happy now. I left my whatever, my 9 to 5. Now I work 9 to 9, whatever. But it's critically important for you to be able to take time to stay on your journey. And that doesn't mean you can't be a great parent or a great partner. You really do have to carve out those days where you can do have a field trip or an excursion or a date night, but understand what the mission is and where you're focused. And some days you'll do, like I said, you'll do a good job on it. Other days you won't, but don't put that pressure on yourself to be perfect. There is no such thing as perfection, you guys. There just isn't. And all the people that you look at and you follow and you would think it's perfect, you have no idea what it is that they're doing to get there. So there is a sacrifice, but one that you can make and be happy with. I hope that answers your question.
Does anybody else have a question? Right, Juanita? Okay.
Yeah, so I have a question specifically about software. So for us, it seems like architecture to us is all about the software and how you use that software and how we go about using them in like conjunction with each other. So I was hearing from architects like saying that, hey, we didn't also have that software. I wanted to know what the learning was like for using that software and kind of how it has changed over time and how you went about learning the software when, you know, before it wasn't all you knew, but for us, it is all we know. So I wanted to get your input on how you went about learning that.
Yeah, and again, that started with that hand drafting and graph papers, right? That's all to scale. Now you have to learn the tool to do the same thing that we were doing by hand with this technology. And then the other thing that's happened with the technology, just say like AutoCAD is 90% of what we're doing and 90% of what we're still getting. Now I'm working on a project with Gensler, and they're the principal on a project at the New Orleans Superdome. I'm the consultant here working with them on integrating local artists and also with the finishes and the continuity of the design. And they use Revit, okay? But then they also sub out renderers. There's other people that they're subbing out that are doing rendering. So yeah, the majority of it still is AutoCAD, and they can give us a CAD file from their Revit file, right? So that is primarily what we use. And I could see that, you know, versions every year we're updating our version here. We have licenses for that. I don't have a license for Revit because, you know, we just haven't had the need to use it. But when architects know what we're running, they have no problem sending us, and there is no problem with compatibility based on what we're sending. So my team continues to get updated and learn the improvements in the software. That's not something that I'm doing. They're doing it and they're bringing it to me saying, oh, Penny, look, here's now a shortcut. We can make this a lot easier, right? So with that, that's great. The same thing with, Photoshop, InDesign, all of those suites we run, and they're incredibly useful to us when we're making our presentations.
That's awesome. I appreciate everybody speaking out and asking a question. Now we can actually transition to Penny's website, which if any of you have free time after this, I highly recommend looking it up because it is very beautiful and well designed and laid out. It is a great source for us to look at to get inspiration of just, how to lay things out, how to word things for a portfolio. So this is it right here, everybody. If you just type in Eclectic Home, not electric, eclectic.
Yeah.
But I have picked out a few projects of yours that I thought looked really cool and unique. And I would love for you to go through the experience, what it was like working with the client, perhaps if you worked with another contractor, an engineer, an architect, possibly another firm, what that was all like. So I guess we could start off with this one.
Yeah. So New Orleans, this is a Queen Anne. This house was built, it's like 1862 or something like that. And this house had been renovated poorly over many, many, many years. So when the client purchased it, it was stuck in the 90s. It was in the 90s, the colors were burgundy, green, and taupe, right? That's what the facade of the house looked like. But it had amazing architectural details that needed to be preserved. So just so you know, I do a lot of renovation work here and project management of renovations. I work with the contractors in selecting the trades and managing the trades to execute the work and keep the integrity of the design as it's planned. So this home, there were several things that we improved. At the very top of if you go back, Liz, to that first exterior shot, that the railing wasn't there, it was missing. So over the course of some years with storms, all of that was missing. The shutters were missing. The ridge caps on the gables of the roof were missing. We had to repoint all of the bricks on the chases of the fireplace that you see coming through the roof. So there was a lot of exterior work that was done, including, of course, new landscaping, irrigation, driveway, and new steps, new decking on the porch, new beadboard on the ceiling. So this house on the exterior got a lot of work. So this was a 3-year project just on the exterior of the house. And it was quite rewarding. But what I did was this. I didn't need an architect on this for the level of what we were doing and how we were doing it. I drew and decided on how the railing should work based on the history of the house. So I did my homework and figured out the proper scale for the railing and how it should be designed. Then I worked with a local craftsperson, shared my drawing, and we basically troubleshooted and then did templates in order to execute that. So something as simple as that detail took a lot of time and it took a lot of research.
What would you say is your typical project timeline and duration? Because you said this one took about 3 years.
Yeah, this one, because we were doing things in phases from exterior, then we moved on to the interior. Right now, with COVID and supply chain issues, I'm sure you guys have heard it. I mean, I hear it every day, even with the Superdome project, we specify one thing and we find out we're not going to get it till 2024. And that's not acceptable. So you always have to pivot. The hardest thing right now is to manage expectations for time and money. Things have gotten out there longer. So the typical renovation, where it would have taken me 12 months before, as an example, now is taking me 18 months. So it's longer, the lead times are longer. And that's, like I said, an issue with not only the material availability, cost of materials, and labor, and there being a labor shortage because there's such a boom. And COVID created a boom with people being at home who now wanted to spend their money on the house because they were spending so much time there. So everything sort of just got backlogged.
Okay.
But that's one of my favorite houses. And it's so funny. Today, this house is the featured on a cover issue for a New Orleans magazine called The Door. And it's on my Instagram and you can see it, but that her dining room was featured. This is all original. This room faces the front. This house had a mix of vintage pieces that were the husband's family that I had to integrate. When you have a client, you have to sit down, meet with them, understand their aesthetic, how they want to function in the house. What are the things that they love, they dislike? This is a representation of who lives in the house, not Penny. My job and your job is to provide access to resources and ideas that they would have otherwise never had because you're that experienced and knowledgeable. So you're there to help refine what it is that they want or think that they want. And so in this case, she had some vintage chairs. We had these wingbacks that were there that we recovered. That sofa is an Art Deco sofa. We have a mid-century chair in the back. And we've got some mixed metals that you can't see in the foreground. So this certainly was truly a mix of periods and styles. And here I played with color and pattern and mixing patterns. Always think the rule of 3, small, medium, large. They all complement each other. And if you look at the pattern, which is a chinoiserie pattern on the chairs, that color, every color in that room is found in that print. So we balanced it with a solid on the sofa and then a larger geometric and then an even larger geometric on the rug. And then the focal point is this original marble fireplace that we restored. And this is rare in New Orleans that this is still a functioning gas fireplace. So it still functions. And the art is from Ashley Longshore. Funny, we were talking about her earlier. She's in Lacoste. She's a fan of SCAD, and SCAD has brought her in before, and she's a friend of Paula's. But Ashley is a self-taught painter, and her muse is Audrey Hepburn. So she went to, that's the Duomo, I believe, in Florence, that became the inspiration for the headpiece that also inspired the room color.
That's amazing.
Chandelier is original to the house, and it was actually rewired. The other thing is this house has these parlors with pocket doors that you see to the right. That's all original, and that's all cypress doors.
That's awesome. This is really such a beautiful room. These are just
Yes.
some pictures,
Yeah.
everybody, before we go to another project. Okay. This one was, I don't know why, but this one just really caught my eye with the pink and green off your site. I really personally, this would be my favorite. And I showed this one to Cam before you joined. I really like this.
So this is a pied-à-terre. This is for a family that has multiple houses around the country. And this house, you guys, is in the historic French Quarter of New Orleans. It is behind these brick walls, and you would never know what you're about to walk into. And so this was a renovation. Now, like Savannah, there's things that you can and cannot do for houses in certain neighborhoods that are deemed historic. So again, we had to figure out what it is that we could and could not do. One of the things that we did do is that there was some it was functionally obsolete in the way the paths went through the house. So there was these odd rooms and dead ends. So we opened, if you look at the photo where you see the stairs and then you see the piano room, to the right of that was another wall that kind of separated your view into there. So we opened that up and used the family wanted color. They wanted to be fun. They have young children. They want it to be approachable. And just because you have a young family doesn't mean you have to sacrifice design. You just have to choose the right materials and at the right price point as well. So that for the wall with the pink, if you go back, that is a mural from Flavor Paper. Flavor Paper is, they started in New Orleans, y'all. This is all awesome because now they're in Brooklyn, and Brooklyn has amazing talent and a lot of manufacturers, independent people designing a lot of amazing things, and Flavor Paper is one of them. Their primary business is hospitality. You'll see them in hotels, but also they do residential. So this, we were trying to bring the outside in. The gardens are incredibly lush in this house, in the courtyards, and we brought that in with this wall covering. So this wall covering then started to inspire the rest of the color palette in that room and the adjoining piano room.
Yes, I love all of the prints and patterns that are happening.
Exactly, and I will tell you again, small, medium, large. So you've got the rug that has a big stripe. We have a smaller animal print. I think animal prints are like neutrals. They usually work with every environment. And then, then you've got the boldness of the wallpaper. We brought the color into this room. These chairs are custom. We went gaga over that fabric with the tiger on it. And then that sofa is actually an outdoor sofa. So just you can use things that are intended for other uses. Because it's outdoor doesn't mean it can't come inside. It looks fantastic. The texture of the woven cane looks amazing. The wallpaper is grass cloth, and then the light fixture is woven with string. The brick floor is original to the house. So that is as old as this house is, which is over 100 years old.
Wow. How long did this project take?
This took about 1.5 years.
Okay. So yeah, this is some more photos, y'all. It's very beautiful. I want my house to look like this one.
Yeah, okay, wall covering the room looks out to the courtyard, and we just really wanted to make a big statement here.
That's lovely. I think you did all of that very successfully. This is just, I feel like I would see this room at SCAD. This is amazing.
Thank you.
So lastly, we can talk about this project, Martha's Vineyard.
Okay, so one of my favorites. So we work on projects all over the country, and it really doesn't matter where you are if you know the business of design and architecture. If you know logistics and you do really well with project management. So for jobs out of town, what we do is we usually spend 2 days. We go and we do field work. So in this case, this was a major renovation where this was a house that got another 2,000 square feet added to it. Beautiful property. The terrain was tricky. The rules in Martha's Vineyard were tricky. The architecture, is specific to the region. But we really did have to almost gut the house, and we went subterranean basement and added a whole play area and another guest suite. So it was a lot. So there were plans that the architect sent to me first before we went to look at the site. So there I got a good sense of the direction of where they were going. Once I went and I did all of my site work, field work videos, myself and a team, we measure every detail, and we do our drawings as built. Now, the architect had as built, but they were not as detailed as the as-builts that we did, okay? So he had as-built, and then he had proposed. So I wanted to do my own. Some people don't do that, but I felt comfortable doing my own. And that was a good thing, because when we got back after doing our field work, we realized that he was missing some things in the as-built that were very critical to how things were laying out, in particular, the kitchen. If you look at the middle photo, where right there, at the edge of where that cabinet ends, that's the pantry. There was a beam that was there that was not drawn. Okay, so if it wasn't drawn in the as-built and I'm planning the kitchen is all off. So what I did was went back, got his CAD files. We got the CAD files. We changed it, took the beam out. But when we did that, we now needed to put another lamb beam in the ceiling to support, because that beam was carrying a load. So it was a steel beam that we added, but it was important because otherwise I was not going to notch out my pantry around a beam. And I also didn't want to lose that valuable space. And also the sight line of the ceiling changed where that fell. So it's something simple, but it could have been very, very big problem to solve. But it executed beautifully. Communication, organization, detail is king. This job, and I'm gonna tell you, the contractor said to us, they have not worked with anyone, even on the island or in Boston, which most come from to work there, as efficiently as we did working thousands of miles away. So that is only a testament to being knowledgeable, to understanding what you're designing, and making sure the execution happens. Again, it's not about making pretty drawings. The hard work comes after the drawing's done, and you got to make it look just like it, right? And if it doesn't work out like you want, not to get all emotional, but say, okay, I always say this, that beam, so that's the universe saying, okay, you're gonna have to tweak some things. And what happened was the contractor and the architect started looking to us for direction. I wasn't throwing it back to the architect. I was like, okay, what if we did this? So it became a collaborative effort. Therefore, you're all on the same team. Everybody wants the same outcome. And there should be no disrespect or ego in the way. The client is all of our client, right? So we all need to make them very happy. So we're all on the same page, or need to be on the same page. And when you're responsive and not defensive or too personal, it works out beautifully in the end. And I've not seen it not happen that way. Even when I've gotten disappointed, I've had to change things. I always say, you know what? That's the universe. The universe says it's just not supposed to be that way.
Exactly. This is very beautiful. Yet again.
My favorite room is this bathroom, the primary bathroom. It was, yeah. So listen to this, y'all. The client, the husband is 7 feet tall and the wife is 5 feet. So the standard height of a vanity finished with the top is 36 off the finished floor. That's too low for somebody that's 7 feet. So this is all designed custom. So we raised up his to the 42-inch mark, brought hers down, and then helped with the asymmetry by putting this plane of stone for the towel. So it is a work of art. The tile was intentional. I was trying to, because the room is longer than it is wide, as you could tell. So I was trying, and there's vaulted ceilings and skylights. So it was lots of angles. So I played off the angle in the tile selection. So it drew you into that space. And so primarily every wall has tile in this bathroom, except the ceiling. And if you look at the other angle, there you go. So then there's the shower. You see the pitch, right? So that's the roof pitch there. We took a closet and made that the shower. They had a very small dated bathroom with a tub in it that just didn't work for somebody of his size. So a lot of work into that small bathroom. And then that's a guest suite. This bathroom was really fun. We played, this is downstairs in that basement. We played with geometry again, and contrast. And you see there's mixed metals. We've got brass and we've got black and we've got white.
Very beautiful. If anybody has any questions about any of these three works you just saw, feel free to turn on your microphone and ask, but now we can just transition back to a few more questions before we wrap this up. But so now, going from your professional experience, working with others, hiring people as well, when you have came across resumes, have you ever noticed a pattern or a trend of positive content or even negative content that you could advise us young students to avoid putting on, or advise something that is more towards our advantage with representing ourselves on a resume, whether it's for an academic application or for a career of choice?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, with most young people, you may not have had the opportunity to have work history, but you may have babysat, maybe you cut grass. It doesn't matter. If you were a grocery store clerk, please put what you've done. Please what you've done. It is important. What it tells as an employer is that you can start something and finish it, or you have got some experience with someone giving you tasks and you completing the task. It is important. So don't think it's not good enough. Put it there. Be extra careful about your social media. I would not put my Instagram on there at all. I would put LinkedIn. Please do that. But know that employers are going to search everything, even if you don't put it. So you need to be very careful at this stage where you guys are now, where you're building your portfolio of work to share. You're going to be sending this out to potential employers. You need to know that they're going to look at you. There's lots of competition. These jobs are coveted. You don't want them to overlook you because of social media. So just be very, very, very careful of that. You also want to put any volunteer association like this association, if you've done coordinating for events for this association, if you've volunteered at job fairs, if you worked in a library just organizing people's materials, that you need to put. Again, put your education, obviously, your skill set, your accomplishments, your associations and affiliations. Sororities and fraternities, yes. If you've had positions within that, yes. That is going to give them an idea of your ability to get engaged and be diverse and, you know, and have had exposure, right? And with people that have had lots of exposure, that's very attractive to an employer, right? You've done multiple things, and that helps them think that you're going to be really more adaptable in the environment. Every environment is different, you guys. Every firm does it differently. Do your homework on the people that you're sending your resumes to. Do your homework as well. Check them out, see who the principals are. Look at the type of work they've done. If you really are drawn to healthcare, you know, don't look at somebody that has not done healthcare, because they're going to invest in you and you're going to be investing in them. You want to be there long enough to learn as well and to see a trajectory. You want to work with an employer that is going to give you all the tools for you to become successful. Don't waste their time and don't waste yours.
I was reading an article on LinkedIn the other day, and it said that when most CEOs are hiring, the three things that they look for are character, attitude, and reliability, because those three things you cannot train. So if you could harp on those three things and what you've noticed from your own employees, or just noticed from people you may have known or seen, just to some people, right now here, you know, because we are in that process of trying to get our first internships or just to make that next big move in our lives as some of us are graduating.
Yeah, you know, and Cameron knows I say this as I'm a broken record. I cannot teach you work ethic. No one can teach you work ethic. You either have it or you don't. Okay. I have had over all of these years students as interns that technically are really strong, but they can only do one task. That doesn't work. It doesn't work for us. You have to be able to communicate very well with trades, with clients. You have to sell what you've drawn. You have to make a case for why what you're presenting works. So your oral and written skills, your work ethic, incredibly important. I can teach you the business of design. I can't teach you passion. I can't teach you commitment. I can't teach you work ethic. I can't teach you communications. You know, if you just are unable and unwilling to listen and learn and grow, then it's just not gonna work. CEOs know, do you understand? They far rather get somebody who has all of these attributes and train them to do what they want. They find it far easier to take someone who's new and groom them than someone that comes in with, say, habits or experiences that take time to undo, right? Because I've had people that come in here and it's like, oh my gosh, that's just not how we work. And they have trouble transitioning. So you have to be open-minded to know that you're going to be learning. You're coming to the table because you're badass. And you're going to say, I am open book. I want to learn. I'm a sponge. I want to learn from you. You're going to learn from me. You're going to be learning so much, but you cannot go in there arrogantly and say, you know, boom, I'm a SCAD grad. I'm coming in. Well, no, you don't really know anything just yet, right? No, you know what they've taught you, and you guys have an amazing experience, and it's the best place, I think, because both my children have been there. But don't get it twisted. It looks great on the resume, but they have lots of expectations for you to be there and to learn and to adapt. But you being on time, Cameron knows, you don't walk into work at 9, go have breakfast, and then start working at 9:45. You go at 9, you start working at 9. Be the first in and the last to leave. I'm telling you, that's impressive. The first in, the last to leave. And showing initiative and passion about what it is that you do and asking questions. Never be intimidated. People want you to ask questions because you're only going to be better because you've done it. But if you're sitting there thinking that my way is the only way, you're going to be in trouble. The universe is going to straighten this out for you real quick. That's not the case. You are going to be asking questions. Know that everything that you're doing is building on where you're going next. It may not be where you want to be now, but it's preparation for where you're going next. Just like I didn't know that me doing all of this construction management and working my ass off for those years was amazing preparation for where I am now when I do project and construction management. I am not a contractor, but I know when things are right and I know when things are wrong. And that's because of everything that has prepared me up to this point.
Thank you for that.
Cam Jam, you got any questions?
Those are all really good key points that we can all take away from this. But my last question, which I think is probably the most important one for us to all hear, as we look around on this Zoom, there is so much diversity within this room, and there's also a lot of female representation right now. So what has your experience been like as a woman of color running and operating a successful business for the past 22 years? What have you noticed within the past 2 decades dealing with those 2 factors in your life and how you've overcome some obstacles or possibly some comments?
Oh my gosh, y'all, there's so much, and I'm so glad you're asking this question. So listen, the world of design, and especially on the residential side, this is a luxury, right? So this is a luxury service, right? I wasn't born with a ready-made market. My parents were not wealthy. We were lower middle class. So they struggled. So I didn't have their friends with disposable income that could give me opportunities to work on vacation homes and all these things. I'm in a predominantly Black city. It is segregated, and so to speak, and that's unfortunate, but it is. And there's a huge difference between the haves and the have-nots. So you must understand, me as a woman of color, working in a market where I don't have the lineage, the name, and the access to a market. I had to build the market. I had to create my own market. And the way I had to do that, and it was, don't get me wrong, it was quite intimidating. I know there's work that I never got because of who I am, but I never let it stop me, because I said, somebody's gonna give me a chance. And they did. And as that started, I just became laser focused, and I was determined to just be me, do me, and the hell with whoever didn't want to do business with me because of who I was. So I know that there's markets that I can't do. I mean, I can't get into here, but I will tell you, I have seen a change. I did not want to walk around with a brand that says, I'm Penny Francis and I'm a Black designer. No, I just want to be Penny Francis and a great designer. You don't have, none of us need to have that label on us, but that's sort of what has happened. Because there's been no equity and inclusion in this world for a long time. And for me, for over 20 years, it was never more clear than I would go on buying trips all over the world, and I would never see us represented. We weren't buying and we weren't selling. You know what we were doing? And I'm talking Black, white, Asian, people of color, all not represented, nowhere, none of it. We were serving at the parties, you know, we were cooking, we were not there. We were not represented. And if we there, it was, and if you're talking where you go to a market and there's 80,000 people that descend on a market like High Point, and you've got people that are writers and editors and architects and designers, manufacturers, you name it, everybody's there, and you see little to none, it is heartbreaking. It has always been heartbreaking. And I'm gonna tell you the God's honest truth. It was not until George Floyd's issue that everybody became woke. With George Floyd, the industry then started getting flooded. We're going to be an ally. We're going to have more inclusion. I sat on so many Zooms and meetings now with organizations that want to have more equity and inclusion. New York does a show every year called What's New, What's Next? And in 2019, you know, New York and LA, you know, that's where you see lots of work featured from those designers. You don't see the rest of the country represented at all. And I promise you, when they think you're from the South, it really, the perception is not just me, and I've talked to other designers in the South. It's like, you can't, it's not only that, or you're a person of color, but then you're from the South. It's like you really, like you must not have any taste or something, right? But they don't, we just didn't get a shot or a second chance. But at that What's New, What's Next, there was panels, right? People from all over, and not one person of color. It was all white women. And someone posted on Instagram, and her name is Melanie Barnett, who is a ceramicist and a textile designer who lives in New York, who is amazing, that went on and said, how can we talk about what's new, what's next, and we're not included in the conversation? And it blew up. And from that, the Black Artists and Designers Guild was formed. Right before that, a lady named Kimberly had started the Black Interior Designers Network. So there are organizations that have blossomed because of this an event, and it's horrible that the event had to happen, but it did. And then you had people like Hearst Publishing, Condé Nast, all of these people that, you know, do all of the shelter magazines that now have a commitment to it. So I'm not angry. It's just, I wish I'd have seen it a lot sooner, right? I'm 22 years in, and I've got the most press I've ever had in the last 2 years, y'all. And I've been at this a long time. And people are like, well, we didn't know where y'all are. Like, we didn't know how to find Black and people of color in the world of design. I'm like, are you kidding me? You just didn't look. We're here. You're just not looking. But there is a network of people that and designers, and they knew it, that you see the same designers' work published. Now, if you're a celebrity, that's always published. But, you know, where are people of color they like design and interiors and art? You know, it's like, why can't we show those people? Why can't we show those people? Why can't we show those people of color that are creating that? There's been no equity and there's been no inclusion. So like I said, it's changing. It's not perfect. I know there will continue to be challenges. You know, in the moment, everybody was like, boop, and then life happens and things sort of settle down, and you see who really is committed to it and who's not. I will tell you who is really committed to it is a company like Pottery Barn. So Pottery Barn, even before the George Floyd incident, was already engaged with Black Artists and Designers Guild and realized that they had an issue with representation. So they put out an RFP to all of the makers that were part of the Black Artists and Designers Guild, because this is a consortium of people of color. The RFP went to everyone, and they were looking for a collection for tabletop. And I had never responded to an RFP before of this manner. I have not done product design, although we did do wallpaper design, and we absolutely have all the resources to do it, but I didn't know anything about licensing. So I'm like, what the hell? What is it to lose? What am I going to lose? Let's just try it. And if anything, I had no expectations other than the fact that I wanted to do this just so I could learn. And guess what? We presented a concept, they were blown away, and we got selected. I was like, holy shit. Now we got to do this, right? So they were amazing to work with, and we created a collection. It was launched in January of this year, and it went through the summer, and it was all about Black joy and celebration. So they loved the design so much, they kept adding to it. So we did tabletop, we did bedding, we did rugs, we did games, there was accessories. So it really did broaden, and I was incredibly proud to have been a part of that. So there's opportunity, but you have to put yourself out there, even when it's uncomfortable. And again, Cameron's gonna know I say this all the time. Y'all, discomfort brings about success. If you are comfortable, you are not doing the right thing. You need to be uncomfortable. That is part of growth. I still get uncomfortable. Like the Pottery Barn thing, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know. They don't know that I was uncomfortable. I'm just like, I'm gonna suck it up, I'm gonna get through it. And then they gave us a ridiculous timeline. I'm like, and it's COVID, and I can't travel to see the materials, and I gotta look at materials on Zoom. So I just say that, and I just know it. And when Cameron's like, you know, I know you guys are in studio, you're busting your ass, you're brilliant, you are doing some crazy good stuff. I am in awe in each and every one of you, the opportunities that you have, the people that are teaching you and what you're exposed to. I only wish I had that, you know, but my journey and where I am is where I was supposed to be. So for you, it's going to be uncomfortable, but I promise you it's going to be sweeter because you are uncomfortable.
Well, thank you so much, Penny. I think I can speak on the behalf of everybody here from SCAD AIAS and those who are going to be watching the recording. We really appreciate how raw and honest and authentic you are to yourself, and how you've stayed true to yourself throughout the past 22 years within your design, your work ethic, your company, and then your goals. I think you set a lot of great examples on just certain elements that some of us can follow and appreciate and respect. And I think you're a great role model for all of us to learn from. So we really appreciate your time being here and sharing your stories and experiences. I think all of us here have learned something and took a few good key factors just to remember from all of your words of wisdom. But I know myself, we really appreciate having you here. Thank you, Cameron, for helping us make this magic work. And we would love to have you back because you just say nothing but great things. So we really appreciate you. And yeah,
Thank you.
anybody else has
Thank you
anything,
so much.
please feel free to ask. I know it's last minute, but thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. It's been my pleasure. And listen, you guys got my email. I don't care at any time. If you have a question, it's okay. Email me. I'll be happy to help and guide you. I think it's important to give back. So I want to give back.
Thank you.
I want everybody to be successful, which you all will be. So.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to end the recording.
Thank you.